All right, so let's call the meeting to order. Roll call of members present. Liz?
All right, let's see. Secretary Halverson?
Here.
Is present. Excellent. Vice Chairman Harrigan?
Present.
Thank you. Member Holmes is absent. Chairman Lewis is still absent, but may be joining us in a little bit. Member Martell is also absent. Member Siegel?
Present.
Thank you. And Member Sutherland?
Here.
Excellent. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We do have a quorum.
Great. Thank you, Liz. All right. Are there any agenda modifications that anyone would like to suggest to the agenda? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you, Kevin.
I keep somehow going out of this meeting. I'm not sure. I can't see you, but Jana, in terms of the agenda, are we moving into closed session or is that not necessary today?
Closed session is not necessary today.
Okay, thank you. I just assumed that, based on, there was no separate agenda. All right, so let's know, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Tom.
Second.
All right, thank you, Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you, everybody. All right, so we'll move forward with the agenda and the first report.
Public comment.
I'm sorry, I'm having computer troubles here. So I believe we have a report from the executive director, or is the financial report first?
Actually, so we're item 2.1 is public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, he dropped out of the meeting again.
Oh my goodness. Well, this is.
He came back in really quickly last time, so hopefully he'll just hop right back in.
Oh, and we don't have a quorum, so Tom can't take over.
Correct.
Hey everyone, Jim's on the call. We have a quorum.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so Chairman Lewis, we were just discussing how the public hearing is not allowed to be opened before 10:15. That was our earliest time. So that's 2 minutes from now. But we did not get to the regular public comment item 2.1 yet. So perhaps that might be a good place to start. But I don't know if we need to take action to rearrange the agenda.
Oh, sure.
Well, I don't have the agenda in front of me all. I'm in a line to get on an airplane in 15 minutes. So if someone, Secretary Halverson, I think you're the next in charge. If you could facilitate the meeting, that would be great.
Okay, we're going to do public comment. Now, open that now. Anybody having a comment to make regarding the agenda, please state so, or actions we need to take. Hearing none, moving on. Okay, we got to get to the public hearing. 10:15 yet. Can we do something else besides the public hearing?
Yes. Yes, we don't have
Liz.
to reorder the agenda.
Liz.
We have the right to take another item.
Right, we can do anything we want. Liz, give me something we can
Yes.
do. How about the consent agenda?
Great
Perfect.
idea.
Okay,
I move approval of the
I
consent
move
agenda.
we approve the consent agenda.
I
Second.
second the motion.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. What else do we got here, Liz? We can get rid of.
Would you like me to present item 5.2, perhaps?
Which is that?
This
Oh, yeah.
is
Yes. What's
resolution.
5.1? I can't see what one is. What is one?
5.1 is the action item that has to take place after the public hearing.
Okay, let's do 5.2 then.
Okay. 5.2 is resolution 2021-3, charter term extensions authorized by Assembly Bill 130. And this legislation, Assembly Bill 130, is the budget trailer bill and had a lot of things in it. But one of the things that it did contain was an extension on charter terms for all charters that had their term ending in a certain time frame. So between January 1, 2022 and June 30th, 2025, all 4 of our pivot charter schools did have term end dates that fell within that time frame. So basically, all of our charter schools will have their term extended by 2 years. So we did receive guidance that a formal resolution would be helpful in this regard to formally acknowledge this extension for each school and to kind of memorialize the new term end date.
Got it. Liz, we're going to shorten this conversation.
Okay.
Jim's got about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
So I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we can go back to the public hearing. It's 10:15. Open the public hearing regarding, I can't see what it is. I don't know.
You're doing a great job, Chair.
Oh,
Halverson.
yeah. Oh,
Acting Chair
independent
Halverson.
study. No, it's for independent study. So I open the public hearing 4.1 at 10:16. Any comment from the public or anybody else? Okay, hearing
so
none. What?
If I could just provide we did also allow public comment via email, via our public hearing notice, and we did not receive any submissions via the email.
All right, thank you very much. Public hearing has just been closed. We heard no comments. Moving on. How about 5.3?
All right, I'm in now.
Okay.
Hello, Karen.
Hello?
5.
Mr. Acting Chair, do we need to take action on 5.1 or was that just a hearing? Was there a vote necessary?
Yes, there is a vote necessary on action item 5.1.
Okay, 5.1. Is Kevin back?
Yeah, I don't know what's
Yes.
wrong with my computer, but I'm back.
All right.
I went down to visitor and they just finished the concrete.
I'll accept the motion. Well, I'll do it right now. I'll accept the motion for 5.1. I move approval of 5.1.
My computer. I printed it out and I left.
I need a second from somebody.
Second.
Second, Jim. All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. So is Kevin back? No. Okay, we're gonna go to
Let's keep going.
5.3. I guess that's next thing, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Give us
Item
a,
5.3 is the revised COVID-19 safety plans and SR3 safe return to in-person instruction plans. We have to revise our COVID-19 safety plans at least every 6 months.
okay, sounds good. Need a motion?
Move approval.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, move to 5.4.
Okay, 5.4 is consolidated application certifications for all pivot charter schools, and these are required for us to receive federal funding. This is an
Turn it
annual thing we
off.
normally
Maybe
do
if
in
you turn it
June,
off.
but got a little bit delayed.
Okay, thank you, Liz. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second. All second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, 5.5.
Thank you, Tom.
5.5 is our official applications for federal title program funding and to have the board authorize each pivot charter school to operate a school-wide program under the title funding programs.
Okay, Kevin, are you taking it? I guess we'll do it.
No,
Okay,
just go ahead, Tom.
okay,
Go ahead, Tom.
all right.
You're doing a great job. I'll move to,
I need a motion to
I will,
approve.
that's so moved.
Second, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we're moving on to 5.6.
Boy, I thought I was an efficient meeting chair. I'm starting to get jealous of Tom.
No,
If you'd be quiet, we'd be out of here.
Keep
Okay,
going,
5.6.
Tom.
5.6.
5.6 is an item from our Director of Human Resources, Brittany Doherty.
Perfect. So this is for the Declaration of Need for fully qualified educators. The Declaration of Need is an annual form we will be submitting to the CTC. There is a separate form for each of the pivot schools, and it serves as a prerequisite to the CTC authorizing emergency permits for our teachers. It isn't a new form, but it is new to Pivot, as previously charter schools were exempt from submitting it. So once it is approved, it'll be submitted to our counties and the CTC, and then any of our teachers needing emergency permits will be able to send in their application. Each form is valid for a year, so these will be completed and presented at a regular board meeting annually, even if we don't need any emergency permits that year.
Thank you, Brittany. Any questions?
OJ moves.
Second? All in
Second.
favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Right?
All
Aye.
right, moving on to consent.
We did that.
No, we didn't.
We did it.
Out of order. Yeah.
Liz, did we
I,
do
mo-
that
I
one?
moved. We did it.
Okay, don't get bossy. Is there anything left we have to take action on, Liz?
I believe that is all of the action items. We just looked through the agenda here on the side. That is all of the action items. We only have the reports left.
Fantastic. All right, Jim, you can go.
Okay, reports can be done without a quorum. Great job, acting chairman. See you all later.
Well, have
Thank
a good
you,
flight.
Thank you.
Have a good
All right.
trip.
Thank you. Bye.
All right,
Bye.
back to the top of the agenda. Liz, I guess you're up.
Okay,
Financial update from Liz Jones.
thank you.
You don't have to rush through this, Liz.
Okay, yeah.
You know what? This is my nap time, so I want that noted.
It was
Okay,
very
well,
well
now we're
presented, Liz.
We're back to a
Well
little
done.
bit-
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Liz. We're moving on.
Okay, on to Gina.
No. All right, Liz, go ahead.
Beautiful cover slide.
Well, and this will
Right.
be a pretty quick report because it's not a full financial update because of the time of year that it is. So we don't have a formal update to the budget yet because the school year hasn't officially started. Books are still closing for the fiscal year that's ended as well. So the unaudited actuals are still in process of being done. So we just have a quick update about the state budget and what that means for funding and the future of our finances moving forward. So it'll be a pretty quick update. So the last time we spoke, we had the May revise, which did have an excellent COLA, which everyone was calling the super COLA, and good increases for SPED and things like that, and a bunch of one-time funding, grants and programs, some of which Pivot is eligible for and some of which Pivot is not. But it was looking like a pretty positive budget. And we also, for each of our schools, were receiving more federal funding than ever before due to all of the ESSER funds and things that are kind of COVID recovery related, and also trying to recover learning and accelerate learning after having a pretty difficult school year in 2020-21. So our budgets have grown due to a lot of that influx of federal funding and other grants through the state as well related to COVID. So as the
Wait, let me back up.
Yep.
This is for last year or the post year?
This is our coming school year board adopted budget. So this is what.
So right now you're showing operating income 195,000, correct?
Yes.
Is that, and there's no pay increases in this, I'm gathering?
There were, the board had approved the 3% increase for returning staff.
3%. All right. So salary wise, at least currently, we have a 3% increase for everyone. Is that correct?
For returning staff, yes.
Yeah, or whatever that crazy system we have. Not that I'm editorializing, of course. Okay, so you feel comfortable with these numbers, obviously.
Yes, and these are the numbers that the board did officially adopt for our fiscal year 22 budget in June.
You think it'll change much?
I do think it will change a bit. Yes, there have been some changes to the way that revenue can be recognized, and just kind of some other programmatic changes which we took action on related to independent study policies and things like that that do kind of change a little bit. In terms of our hiring and job responsibilities. So we might, have some changes in staffing, just due to the changes in the grants.
Relatively minor?
Relatively minor.
Okay. Any other questions on that one, guys? Nope.
Will there be comments about how these numbers reflect current enrollment?
Yes.
Not yet. Well,
Okay.
yes. Oh,
We'll
sorry.
move on. That was coming up because I have some questions too about that.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So moving on with the actual budget that the state adopted, we did get the super COLA for our primary funding source, and special education funding also saw a nice hefty increase. There are some other things in the budget, that kind of address how the COVID year will be treated for funding. So there, we didn't have our normal local control accountability plan. We had those sort of special COVID plans. And so there was some wording in there about how that works, kind of skipping a year with the LCAP. And since the LCAP is tied to our funding, so we're kind of, going off of the 1920 LCAP as our last official LCAP year. As we took action on, just a little bit ago, the charter term did get extended by 2 years for each of our charters. That doesn't have a direct fiscal impact necessarily, but it does, kind of change the whole process of when we submit our renewal petitions. And we do still need to submit our funding determinations on the same schedule, but at least the charter term is stable for an additional 2 years.
The shortest one is for whom?
Pivot San Diego is the next up. Their original term end date was about a year from now, so we had been planning to submit the renewal petition right around now, but now we have an extra 2 years on that, so that will expire in 2024.
Yeah, there is good news in this stuff.
Yes, there definitely is good news.
Okay, thank you. Go on.
Mm-hmm. Some more good news is about the deferrals. So there had originally been more deferrals planned for fiscal year 22, and the official budget eliminated all of those. And there's also a little bit of a faster payback on the deferrals from fiscal year 21. Originally, if you recall, we had that big slide that showed all the, the deferrals and, starting in February, and the last of them didn't get paid back until I think November. But now the plan is to pay them all back much earlier. So cash should, fingers crossed, not be a problem this year, since we don't have deferrals to look forward to at this point.
So we'll have no need to borrow any money.
I don't anticipate so.
Ooh, you are a politician.
You never know. I mean, hopefully the pandemic will, continue to be kind of contained, and, we won't have another complete shutdown or anything like that, but fingers crossed. We do have several one-time funding sources. As I mentioned, Pivot is not eligible for some of them. So for example, this one that's in red, the ELOG2, it's the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant, kind of a second wave of it, but it's primarily targeted to classroom-based programs. So we don't get that funding, but we do get the Educator Effectiveness Grant, which is great. There's a large need for professional development for our educators, especially in these crazy times that we're in, with a lot of needs as far as mental health goes and social emotional learning. And, a lot of our families have been impacted pretty hard economically as well. So, training our educators on how to respond to those situations and those needs of our students and our families is a high priority. So I'm really pleased to see some funding to help that. There are some other grants to help with the expansion of transitional kindergarten and getting students to be A through G ready, which means they basically can meet the requirements to apply to a University of California or California State University right after college. So these are things that Pivot is eligible to apply for. And we've looked at this point, I don't anticipate that we'll be applying for these particular grants because there are a lot of requirements and things to do really quickly, timelines and things like that. And we have so many grants and funding sources that we're already juggling, especially federal, that at this point, I don't think that these are ones that we'll be pursuing. But if that changes, we will definitely let you know and report on those. As I mentioned, LCAP has been, kind of jumbled a little bit since we didn't have an LCAP last year. And then with all the federal funding sources as well, the LCAP has certain requirements and things that are kind of tagged on to satisfy federal reporting requirements. So we have a special one-time supplement coming to the LCAP that I assume you all will take action on a little bit later. I think it won't be due for a while still, but there will be some unique kind of one-time things in the LCAP coming to show how we're spending, especially the federal money like ESSER 3, which is fairly substantial. It's a kind of a higher dollar amount. So that will be included in the LCAP. The CDE is working on a template, which they plan to release in November. And then, there's kind of a delay while all of the LEAs are, working on it and then submitting it to their boards for review and everything like that. So we will update you. It is due by February 28th, so this will likely show up on our January meeting agenda. And just some other funding news. Again, several of these don't apply to Pivot, but we just want to, let you know what's out there and what sometimes we get excluded from because we are a non-classroom based school. But we do get a lot of the, federal funds, the COVID funding. This just really reaffirms that our decision and your decision as the board to approve Title I applications for fiscal year 21. That was the first time we had ever applied for federal title funding. But it ended up being a very, very important decision that has benefited Pivot and our funding and eligibility for funding, because a lot of these federal funding sources are not able to be, received if the school doesn't receive funding. So Title I is it opens the door for all of these other federal funding sources like ESSER. So it was a very wise decision, and I'm really glad that we have that opportunity. There is also an increase in funding for CTE, career technical education, and this is a priority that the board had identified and that the school administration has been pushing as well in our LCAP and wanting to make sure that our students are prepared for careers after. So we are planning to continue what we have been doing with, getting special grants to help us grow these programs and really establish pathways that will benefit students and help them transition to careers effectively. That was good news as well. Okay, so revenue summary. So here for the increases that we see. So state special education is a decent increase for each site. The lottery funding has also gone up. This EEG, that's the Educator Effectiveness Grant. And the official amounts, the numbers of this have not been released yet. So this is just kind of a preliminary estimate of what we think the schools will get. And we'll update you once we have information from the CDE, but this is just our internal estimate at this point. And then the PPP loan, which we did apply for forgiveness. We haven't received a decision yet. It's been taking the Bank of America and SBA quite a while, and Jana and I are still working with them on this to see what the status is of our forgiveness application. But we do anticipate that we will receive an answer on that, and that as that loan is forgiven, it will count as revenue in the fiscal year when that forgiveness occurs. So we do anticipate that will be this current fiscal year 22.
I'm surprised that it's taken so long. What
Yes.
Do they tell you what the delay is?
No, we actually, Jana and I have it on our agenda to call our designated person again to find out what the holdup is. Some things in the portal on the banking website have been changed. That at first it looked like a decision had been made, but we didn't receive any notification, and then the portal kind of got reset. So that's on our list to do very soon, is to figure out, was a decision made? And if so, how do we find out, because we didn't receive anything in the mail or email about it. So
I have a question on the PPP. If it's approved, I mean, we don't have to pay it back. How is it booked? Do we as an income, and are there expenses against it, or how it just shows up as a big $800,000 income?
Yeah. So, and we're currently working with the auditors on that. They did say that because the loan is specific to the nonprofit corporation, Rhodes Education Organization, that the revenue does get booked at the home office. which is why you see it kind of over here by itself on the right under the home column. The expenses that we have for it, they're primarily payroll because that's what the loan was intended to support, was payroll expenses during the pandemic. So the expenses that are, kind of booked against it are split among.
But is that already, that in the budget you showed us previously, was that already accounted for without this income?
Yes. So the payroll expenses that go against the PPP loan were from fiscal year 21.
So I guess my question still is then, assuming it's approved, is the home office pick up $800,000, but no corresponding expenses that haven't already been fooled with?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, that sounds like a significant dollar amount.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, Jada. Yes. I mean, when that goes through, or hopefully it will, it's a one-time shot. That's the downside of it. But the upside of it is that's a lot of money that's going to be in the till that we could maybe do stuff with on at least on a one-time operation. So that's cool. All right. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. And with all these other increases as well, overall pivot wide, not including the PPP, it's about $241,000. So, that's also an additional significant amount that we have to work with as we adjust our, expenses for this coming year.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so enrollment. Yes, you did ask about enrollment. The budget on that slide that we discussed previously was based on these enrollments and ADA numbers. So we have the budgeted amounts here. In Jana's presentation, she will give you an update on where our enrollment currently stands. So we'll just kind of keep these in mind. North Bay is budgeted for 469 students. And then I have the attendance percentages here that were worked into the budget. So ADA of just under 400, North Valley a little bit smaller at ADA around 107, and then San Diego and Riverside, similar to North Valley, they're kind of, in the hovering on the slightly over 100 range with different attendance percentages, but this is what is budgeted for. And we have seen a little bit of a slow growth in enrollment this summer, but it has been accelerating, and we have been seeing a lot more enrollments over the last couple weeks. But Jana will present on actual enrollment, but I just wanted to set the stage for what is baked into the budget.
I'll ask if you guys can get it. What's the first number, the 469, for example? Where did it come from?
The first number is enrollment. So the number
I got that, but what's it based on?
It's based on primarily, the board had requested that we didn't project significant growth for this coming year. So these numbers are based on our 1920 numbers, so kind of pre-pandemic numbers, assuming we would have, some sort of a return to a quote unquote normal year. The only one that was a little bit different, I think, was San Diego, because their enrollment or their ADA actually did better during the pandemic year. So their ADA and enrollment increased, I think, only by about 2, but that's what we ended up using. But all of these are based.
All right, and the percentage is different for each place. Why is that?
So these are based on historical actuals over the past many years. Some sites have gotten better over the years, but these numbers are very representative of the actual attendance percentages that are generally seen at each site.
Okay. Anybody else got questions?
I do have yes. I do have a question. Let me get the phone. I seem to recall that somebody was saying that some budget numbers were going to be reflected on the COVID ADAs from last year. So how does, I don't even know how to form the question, but where are we going to put this in? Are these budgets for the 21-22?
Yeah.
Yes. And so the tricky thing is that technically the state didn't collect information on attendance for the fiscal year that just ended, the 2021 year. So we don't actually have these numbers in the same sort of certified and official way that we do through the California Department of Education. The amount that we were funded on for the pandemic year was the same as what we were funded on for the 1920 year prior to the pandemic. So the ADA that was funded was the same for 2 years. And so we did, the board had said, that you all didn't want to anticipate growth, but also didn't want to, anticipate a dramatic decrease in enrollment. So kind of just hold steady. So these numbers are technically holding steady from 1920 and 2021 because that was our funded ADA for both of those years.
So I guess the only school site that might be a challenge is Riverside, because although we're budgeting based on old numbers, we're hoping for growth given our new expanded facility. Am I correct?
Yes.
Correct. They've already exceeded it.
Yes.
We've already exceeded it. And so even if we continue growing, we're not going to grow our revenue for Riverside.
We will.
We will this year.
Yes. So these numbers, so as I mentioned, the pandemic year was sort of it was a hold harmless, was the language they used, and they funded all the LEAs on their prior years ADA funding levels in general. But that is now gone. So see at the top of the slide here, I neglected to mention it, but the ADA hold harmless provision is done. So we are back to our normal funding based on actual enrollment and attendance for this year. So I do anticipate that Riverside will have a higher enrollment in ADA than this, which means our funding will increase at Riverside. This is just what was into the budget.
I looked at North Valley, North Bay. It was like the current one's like 320 kids on Jana's budget, or I think on Jana's forms, and you're showing us for 392. So you anticipate we're going to grow 70 or 80 kids?
Yeah, we already have grown by a handful. We're growing every week.
So that a pattern would say it's probably going to happen then.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll hit the mark exactly in time for it to get as much ADA as possible, but they are growing rapidly, yes.
Okay. Kevin, you had some questions?
Well, my question was also about the enrollment at North Bay. So, and I know that because Jana, you have a number in your presentation, and I know that those change daily, and that the first interim is also where we get a clearer understanding of the actual enrollment in correlation with the budget. I get my advocacy is always to budget respectfully conservative. If there's conditions of possible declining enrollment, and we've historically had some conversations about what would be the consequences of COVID and how the correlated districts in which we serve our students may be offering different types of programs that might reduce our enrollment. So just taking all those factors into consideration and not having a crystal ball, because that's always when I was doing this work as a superintendent, board members would ask questions and I don't have a crystal ball. We make our very best estimates as we're doing here with the data which we choose to use as our benchmark. I'm just advocating that we do monitor the North Bay data because historically that's our largest income source for ADA.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely, Kevin.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Anything else with that? Okay, moving on.
All right. Thank you. All right. So for our next steps, as you all mentioned, we are going to be monitoring the enrollment very closely. So in addition to finalizing the fiscal year 21 close and submitting our unaudited actual reports, we will be watching enrollment very closely. We'll also have updates on, final staffing and everything. As you know, there were several new positions that we had, posted and been hiring for, in particular with respect to the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant with our paraprofessional aides on site and everything like that. So we'll have an update on our final hires for the start of the school year with the first interim and at the November meeting. And We do have some to-do items on the horizon. In particular, there is an ESSER 3 plan, which is due at the end of October. And so I just wanted to put this on your radar as something that will most likely require a special meeting because of the timing. The next regular meeting is not until November 6th, I believe. So, and this does have to be board approved.
What is it?
It is, so ESSER 3 is one of the federal funding sources related to kind of COVID recovery. And it's a fairly substantial dollar amount, and lots of schools are using it, to support increased instruction in person or virtually, ensuring safety. So things like personal protective equipment or air purification, ventilation, in some cases, large, HVAC upgrades to buildings and things like that. But it is primarily a COVID safety and recovery type of funding source, but it is federal, and there is a plan that is required kind of programmatically as well as the expenses. And so that does need to be board approved. And it's due about 2 months from now. So we're currently working on that, and we'll keep you updated, but it's unless the due date changes, it would require a special meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And that is the end of my report. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for Liz? Yep, I agree with Kevin. Nice job.
Nicely done, Liz.
Thank you.
Jean, I guess you're up next.
Yep. Great. Go ahead, Liz.
There we go.
All right. I'll give you a recap of the legislation that you just passed a bunch of things about and why you had to pass it. Give you an update on the program, our enrollment, and some new marketing things we're trying, and also give you an update on staffing. AB 130, and as you know, most of these got passed about 5 weeks ago. Require that all school districts and county offices of education offer independent study for the 21-22 school year only, and that they notify families of the option to have independent study. Obviously that could have an impact on our enrollment this year because their districts are offering these independent study programs, but truth be told, I don't really think it's impacting it that much. Because of what we've talked about over and over again and kind of what we're marketing, and that is that we've been doing this a long time and we do it really, really, really well. And the frustration that many families felt last year when their schools had to go virtual. So it's a one-year thing. In addition to that, they decided to throw a whole bunch of updates to the independent study laws and policies, and that's why you had to reapprove our policies. We gave you a red line as well as an adopted, changes accepted version. It's not a bad thing. It doesn't hurt us, to be honest. It's all good stuff. I know the districts that haven't offered independent study in the past have been scrambling, and they were very, very frustrated about all these changes happening. Some of them like 2 weeks before their schools opened, but they're not killing us by any stretch. So, and then you heard about this earlier, the charter schools whose terms expire on or between January 1, 2022 and June 30th, 2025. Liz pointed out yesterday that North Valley got in that radar by 1 day, the exact day, that they have an extension 2 years on their terms. So
when does theirs run?
When does what? That was going to be basically July 1st, 2025, or the day before that, 2 days before that. So June 30th, 2024. I'm sorry, June 30th, 2020. Here they are. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, these are the new dates.
Those are the new dates, but they would have expired on. Liz, can you go back to my slide, please?
Okay, I have them right here too. These are the dates. Yeah.
Yep. It would have expired on June 30th, 2025, North Valley.
That's 27.
Yes.
Yeah, good news.
Yes. Yeah, it is. Also they extended the moratorium that they had passed 2 years ago on no new non-classroom based charter schools now through January 1, 2025. That's the only win that the California Teachers Association got out of this legislation, was to extend that moratorium. And the legislation that they were pushing to, revamp all of independent study charter schools and non-classroom based charter schools. And I put the things in here that only the legislation is huge. I'm only focusing on the ones to explain to you what of the things that you had to adopt and why you had to adopt them, or that they caused programmatic changes. So these are just a few of the things in relation to what you had to adopt. We have to provide opportunities for synchronous instruction.
Stop.
Yes.
What does that word mean?
Teacher delivered, basically, face to face, so to speak. So small group, one-on-one. Yeah. We also have to provide live interaction opportunities for grades 4 through 8 with any staff person, and we must document student participation. The intent of that was more for social emotional learning, which we are already doing. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Is this a big deal? Is this a big deal to us, especially if they're an independent study?
No. We found very easy ways to offer all of this. Whether the kids are going to take us up on it, that's another issue. But one of the things that we learned last year programmatically is they really do attend these workshops, and if the teachers focus on making them strong workshops and strong classes, they attend, and that's a good thing, because that's important for them to get the help that they need. So it was not hard for us to implement any changes around these things. Our multiple tiered system of support, which is what MTSS stands for, the evaluations are now triggered by missed assignments and lack of satisfactory progress, but we were already doing that, but it's in the law, and we had to specifically state that in our independent study policies that you have adopted the changes of. And also extended background check requirements for outside vendors, which we have always done. There are a number of charter schools that have never done that, and they're scrambling and they're trying to find workarounds. And I keep telling them to stop trying to find workarounds, because that's why we keep getting hit with this stuff. But we have always done it since day one.
What does that mean? I mean, what do they do? What do you do?
So a lot of non-class, it's a good question, Tom. A lot of non-classroom based charter schools hire tutoring agencies. They contract with piano teachers to teach music. The kids actually go to the piano teacher's studio as part of their homeschooling type program. They contract with them to provide that service, and they don't fingerprint them. I don't think that's smart. Either do the legislators, because they've now made it a mandatory requirement. So
you're checking for criminal activity, I guess.
Correct.
So you could be putting students at risk.
They could be, yes. But we have always fingerprinted all of our contractors that have any contact with students, either virtually or physically.
Okay, great.
So the way the program's going to look this year, again, we learned some things from last year about what works. I mean, it was very, very effective to have our virtual workshops, and the teachers have gotten much better at delivering those workshops. Mondays and Wednesdays, we're going to have on-site classes for credit. No longer are we going to do that program time 4 days a week or 5 days a week like we used to, where they just kind of come in and have a proctored study hall with minor things happening and students being pulled out for them. We're actually going to offer on-site classes and some hands-on clubs and activities in the afternoons where kids can actually earn credit. So we're offering, for example, writing and algebra. Why writing and algebra? Well, because those are the things that the kids need to know better and get some direct instruction on, and where they struggle the most with the online curriculum. So these will be teacher-led direct instruction classes. So we're pretty excited to see how that goes. And they are for full credit. So it's going to be an additional way for them to earn some credits. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we are going to have like a limited computer lab access to what we used to call program time on site, where they can come from 9 until noon. But we're really going to focus on our students who are our special populations and might need that sort of a setup where they need to work at the school site with a teacher there more than others. Obviously, we can't discriminate and say that, you know, a kid who's taking 4 AP classes can't come to the school site too, but we're really trying to focus on bringing those students in who don't have as good a strong internet as we learned last year, and that maybe don't have a good home environment where they can actually do schoolwork, and really get them used to the fact that you need to spend several hours a day working in your online curriculum every single day. And here, this is how we're going to help you. You can come to the school site and do it and use our computers and our internet, and our teachers will be there. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays, we will also continue to offer virtual workshops. So if one of those students that might be homeless or a foster student or has a difficult home environment who comes to the computer lab on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they can actually go into a classroom and attend the virtual workshops as long as we can supervise them still and see them. They can't go into a closed room, but most of our rooms have windows. And they can go in and participate in their virtual workshops, or they can just do it at the seat that they're in and put their headsets on and participate in those virtual workshops. And again, the advantage to that and our intent of that is to have these students who are on site, the teachers who will be there supervising it, actually logging them into the workshops to make sure they're participating, because the kids who are struggling are the ones that aren't choosing to log into the virtual workshops. So all of these things will also be, you know, encompassed into our multiple tiered system of support, in the sense that if they're not doing well, if they're not performing, if they're not making satisfactory progress, we can say in our MTSS, you need to do this, and we're going to help you at these times, on these days, at our computer lab, and we will log you into these workshops. So it's, again, just different layers of support for our kids who struggle. And then Fridays, we started this last year. Once a month, every family has to meet with their educational coordinator face-to-face, cameras on. Video conferencing is okay this year with the Delta flying around at this point, to go over student progress. And the reason why we moved to this system last year, and it was very successful, this and also the teachers being required to meet with their kids twice a week if they didn't come to campus or participate in these things. And the main focus of that is because sometimes it's really, really hard to track these families down to schedule meetings. But if they have a specific time once a month that they know they have to be there to meet with their teacher, we're chasing them down a little bit less.
What if they don't show up?
We actually then start to use our multiple tier systems of support to kind of amp up our communication, amp up our holy cow, you're not progressing, you have to come to these meetings, and sort of moving them up. And then we are also have a separate track this year where some of this kind of turns into, and I say discipline, but it's too strong of a word, you know, supports around behaviors. So there's two different sides. MTSS is supports around academics, and then the other side this year supports around behaviors, and that would fall into a behavioral one. So we have sort of two different paths of supporting the student depending on what's going on in their lives. So we would start amping it up, that behavioral side of supports.
Okay.
We have a highly, highly expanded counseling program developed by Sarah Gerber-Kai and her staff. Part of it will meet the legislation requirement for social and emotional, but we were already doing it, but you know, which is great because they require it. And we're like, yeah, we already do that. We already know we need to do this. Other schools didn't know to do to amp up their social and emotional learning. We also established homerooms on Fridays. That's going to be one of the points of contact that will meet the requirements of the law, is the homeroom. And basically, whose ever phone that is, could you mute? Sorry. The homerooms will be where their students have to meet with their educational coordinator, again, on video conferencing. And we have a series of activities for them to do so that they can support their students every Friday at 11 a.m. Again, part of that is meeting that legislation, but we were already doing it last year. We required the teachers to meet with their kids twice a week. So that's that next bullet. We've also expanded our response to intervention. I know we gave you a presentation last year, Brooke Van Ardsdale and Tracy Williams developing our response to intervention. And our response to intervention team has been working with our multiple tiered system of support team and bringing it all together kind of under one bubble. And that's just helping us, be a little bit more consistent and just endless continued layers of support for our kids that we've never had in years past, that we started developing. I started developing it about 3 years ago, and then RTI came on last year, and we were really excited about it. Any questions on the program?
Sounds terrific.
We're pretty excited. So San Diego enrollment right now is at 102. We get updates on Fridays because it's moving so fast. It's hard to watch it live and getting it updated. So yeah, these are my numbers from last Friday. So, but again, they have changed already. So that's the good news. They are increasing. San Diego's increasing a little bit slower, but again, the target was 117. So if you look over on the 2019 at this time, you don't have to go back through your board materials to see Liz's slide to see what we budgeted at, because that was what we budgeted at roughly was the 2019 mark, right, Liz? San Diego was the one exception. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's also at this time. So we budgeted for the total year.
Yes, at this time. Yeah. I'm sorry.
So even though at this time, this number is lower than what we have for our annual budget, that's, just due to the fact that, it's always a little bit lower in August.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Thank you. Riverside is already at, sorry, I'm looking at my spreadsheets that are open. Riverside is at 139 today. As you can tell from the slides, the elementary was increasing the fastest and the most. We did lose our elementary school teacher, as you saw in the staffing part of this presentation. And we have just hired her. She's brand new. She cleared last Saturday, and I put her on a plane Sunday to come to Santa Rosa. And we're really excited about that. But we are also continuing to look for another elementary school teacher, because these numbers are much higher than one caseload. And we also lost another educational coordinator at that site. So we're still figuring out what we're going to do with staffing there, but very excited. I do think the elementary is increasing at all sites a little bit, percentage-wise, proportionally a little bit faster, because many of the families don't want their younger kids to be wearing masks at school. So, but the middle and high school leads, as we call them, when people are interested in the school, they fill out a lead form. They've increased significantly the last 5 days, because I get CC'd on all of them. So pretty excited about that.
And just to clarify on that, we do require our students to wear masks as well, but these are families who are wanting to do the entirely virtual program.
Yeah. Thank you. North Bay enrollment.
My only other thing was it said all of these, but the percentage of special education still is a large number.
Yeah.
Is it the same, or is it changing, or?
No, it's actually a little bit lower than it was in prior years.
Oh.
But the same for us, relatively. We lost one special ed teacher this year that's just left education in general. Good guy, we'd take him back in a heartbeat. So we have not replaced that position yet, and we're going to keep our eye on these numbers to see if we have to. We have advertised, obviously, in case we have to, press go. So we're watching it very, very closely. North Bay, currently, I got an update while you guys were talking. Right now is at, and this would be reflected in our Friday reports that come out on this, but I wanted an update on this. They are already at 346 with 16 in process, but 346 confirmed enrollments with 16 applications in various stages of being processed right now. So 346 plus 16, we're definitely getting closer to our mark pretty quickly here. North Valley, am I concerned? Yeah. We lost a teacher there, and we have Heather McGuire, as you know, moved on, but we stay in touch very closely still. She just wanted to go to a seat-based program and have her own classroom, and that's very understandable. After a couple of years, our teachers do want to do that sometimes. So I'm worried about enrollment in North Valley. The marketing slides will show you kind of what we're doing in response to that, but at least budgetarily, we haven't replaced Heather, and that team is really, really solid up there. As you noticed, their special ed numbers are very, very high, so we're going to be doing some digging and trying to find out what's going on. So marketing, we did these virtual information nights, and they were super successful. I did the first one and back in the spring, and then Lindsay did them in my absence with Liz and Tracy and obviously the admin team. Lindsay was the lead on it, and she was fabulous. I never have to do them again because Lindsay's so dang good at them. I love it. She was amazing, and we've had like between 20 to 50 people depending on the night. They sign up for them. We had about 57 registrants this last time. Apparently some of those were people who already enrolled before the actual virtual information night. So we had about 30 people attend. So it's pretty cool. Very excited about that. We're going to do another one in another week and a half or so.
So what happens there?
So basically, great. Thank you for asking. Basically, we present the school. Like in the old days, we used to have these information nights at each school site, you know, obviously physically there. And it was a lot of resources going towards it and a lot of time. And, you know, with COVID, everybody's used to doing things online. So we do, you know, a pivot wide. We send it out via Facebook. We send out emails to anybody who's ever shown any interest in our school and isn't enrolled already. We go back a couple of years for these leads that have filled out, you know, they wanted information about the school. We send them emails. We do social media campaigns and say, hey, learn more about Pivot. And we basically just go through with a, you know, with a deck, with a PowerPoint deck, and we go through and explain the Pivot program. They get an opportunity to ask questions. And, you know, for example, they'll ask a special ed question. So Tracy is there to answer that. They get to meet staff and see staff. And it's really, really informative for the families. They get a good sense of who we are pretty quickly. It lasts an hour, and then the questions have been lasting a half an hour. So it's about an hour and a half. The presentation actually goes for about what, like 40 minutes, Liz, I would say 30 to 40 minutes. And then the questions go for like another 20 minutes to a half an hour sometimes. It's been amazing. Great.
Sounds good.
Yeah. We've also placed for the first time in our history editorials, they're called. They're basically, they look like a story written about Pivot, but we pay for it. And we are trying those out. I wrote them with Trepepi Smith, and we're trying those out in all of our different jurisdictions, half-page ads. We are also doing Spanish and English radio ads everywhere except San Marcos, just because we haven't found a radio station yet. But if we find the right one, because we have to look at the demographics of the radio stations, then we will also do radio ads. It is cheaper than you think to do the radio ads. So that's something new that we haven't done. We've done them before, we just haven't done them recently. Also, I tried this new thing with this company that reached out to me when they saw Pivot Riverside moving, and anybody who purchases a new home in Corona and Chico gets this welcome to the neighborhood packet, and we are advertising in that as well. And obviously we're continuing our online presence. So several of these things are fairly new, and us attempting to just reach a different market. Any questions about marketing?
It looks good. I like that mailer thing though to the new people. That's ingenious, and you know,
yeah,
probably bringing kids with them. Odds are.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, yep. Okay, staffing, we hired the new elementary teacher, as I mentioned. Her name is Katie Miller. We've, you all approved as part of the ESSER plans, the COVID monies that is required for us to hire aides, spend some of that money on aides. We've hired 4 out of our 6 that we had budgeted for. We're still looking for 2 more, 1 in North Bay and 1 in Riverside Elementary. We hired a brand new full-time educational psychologist at Pivot North Bay. The job is more than full-time, and in the past we've had an independent contractor doing it. So she is now on board as part of the team as a full-time person. We hired, woohoo, this is my favorite position, sorry, a new position besides the COVID coordinator who is older. But this summer, Liz and Lindsay, and I think Craig maybe interviewed several technology coordinators. As you know, we don't have a tech coordinator. We have a company that helps us, and they're based out of somewhere down in Southern California, Orange County or San Diego. But now we have our own guy. His name is Alex, and he's wonderful, and he's based out of Pivot North Bay because that's where we have obviously the biggest issues with computers, just sheer number wise. So anyway, so we are pretty excited about that. He just started about a month ago and has already proven himself to be incredibly helpful. He's tagged all of our computers and with a little tag, and if a kid, and they're going to do it with the student computers as well, if a kid decides to walk off with our computer, he can track it and he can shut it down so it's useless to them. It's a bunch of cool stuff that Liz and Lindsay have been investigating for years, but neither one of them had the time to like implement it, and that's just one of our favorite things. So Liz, you want to add to that, or are you good?
Yeah, I guess so. One other thing, just to give you all a heads up, is he's also with the asset tagging and kind of revamping our whole inventory system for computers and tech devices. He's also going through and sorting things for electronic waste. And per our financial policies and procedures, you will see on the next board meeting agenda a spreadsheet of devices proposed to be sent to electronics recycling. So we can finally get rid of a bunch of old devices that now that we can identify which ones they are that are kind of useless to us at this point. So very excited about that.
Yep. We also have hired our new reading specialist. And she will be working with our students who are being, as you know, we assess all of our students when they first come on board in math, language arts, and reading. And she will be working with students specifically on reading and giving them support if they come in at a certain level below grade level in reading. And we're super excited about her. And we still need, as you had approved in the budget last year, an English language development teacher and those 2 more aides that I mentioned in the second bullet. But that's our gap still, and we're working on that right now. But we do have some specialized educational coordinator positions. We have 2 teachers that are Spanish speaking, and we have focused on making them pivot wide to work with our families for whom English is not their first language. And so that's a little bit of a shift in how we do caseloads pivot wide. And I think it's really going to support our Spanish speaking families. Go ahead.
That's the last slide.
Okay.
Could I just ask, could you talk a little bit more about the reading specialists? I know you identified the means by which the students who she works with are going to be identified. But since we serve students K-12, that's a pretty broad span of students to support. And historically, again, historically, reading specialists were targeted, K-3, where again, students are learning to read. And then there would be targeted, perhaps reading support in middle school for academic reading. But at the secondary level, it had generally already been assessed the student's ability to read. So
Correct. And we are flipping that upside down. We already have a reading program that our elementary and middle school teachers and students use. It's called Lexia. I'm sure you know it, Kevin. And that has been fairly successful in helping to remediate any gaps in the reading at the elementary and the middle. And not to say that this reading specialist won't work with the younger ones or can't, but we're going to make sure that that the ones that she's working with at the elementary level are significantly already behind in their reading, because generally our teachers and our and the curriculum we have can catch up ones that are only, you know, half a grade level or a grade level or so behind when they're younger. We really are focusing her on, and I know this is shocking, but we have middle and high school students that are greater than 4 grade levels behind in reading. And our discussion around this as educators is, you know, some traditional schools move kids forward regardless, right? Social promotion is what it's called. And if they get a D or a D minus, they get moved on, right, to the next grade level. And our definition of that is the definition of insanity. It's you know, you keep doing the same thing expecting a different outcome, right? How can we expect these students who are 3 and 4 and 5 grade levels behind in reading and their basic skills in math and language arts to be able to continue to be successful and take courses? They just continue to struggle because nobody is addressing the primary cause of it, which is lack of basic skills in math and language arts and inability to read at any kind of particular grade level in order to help them be successful. So these kids just keep being pushed forward and pushed forward without anybody actually addressing the underlying cause. So she's going to be focused significantly on those high school students and middle school students for whom it's becoming this perpetual lifetime of struggle in education and helping them to read. And as you know, we have these other specialized remediation programs that we also help support them in math and language arts. But that reading, like, how can any kid do anything in the world if they can't read? And if they've this far, right? So that's where we have our focus on the older kids first. And then obviously if we have extreme cases, you know, in elementary, she will work with them as well.
And I agree with that completely. I would say that the recognition of that more than 1 year or 2 year deficit is something actually that, you know, that I also addressed in my practice, you know, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And the structures were where reading specialists were under the Miller Unruh reading specialists. They had to be targeted at K3. And so what we as educators then acknowledge that the curriculum for K3 is already heavily focused on the teaching of reading and the remediation of reading practices and strategies, where it's just assumed once a child comes into 6th grade that they have that skill and that they know how to read, and that isn't true. So, you know, strategies such as, you know, not having an elective but a double period where there was a focus on reading technique strategies that paralleled their English language arts course, or a focused double math block or math period at a 6 through 12 schedule, was a similar way by which, you know, what you're speaking to, Jana, that more than 2 grade level discrepancy was addressed through a support period of instruction for the basic skills to be able to participate in the class they were taking. So I completely support that. I just was interested in what our model was. So
the beauty of it is we don't have the typical high school or middle school schedule.
I understand that.
Scheduling constraints. It's gorgeous. It's wonderful.
Yeah. But I'm just saying is that in the traditional setting, what you're speaking to has been recognized as a need. And so I think it's important that we address that, because if we put a student into an academic course and they don't have the basic skills in order to be successful in it, then we're setting them up for failure.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
And we do do get a lot of pushback from some of the families, unfortunately, because they're like, well, what is this extra thing? I just want them to finish high school. And what is this extra thing you're requiring? And we really have gotten good at, having our teachers really understand and internalize, exactly what you just said, Kevin, how important this is, and being able to relay it to the families in a way that they don't see it as a negative, but sometimes they do. It's a little frustrating. It's like, no, we're trying to help. We're trying to make it better. It's our whole tagline, right? Learn more, struggle less, or, so anyway, it's pretty exciting.
I have a question that probably indicates I was napping a while back. But do you have a program for how to do virtual?
Yes, I'm glad you asked. I should have put it in the program slide, and I'm so sorry I didn't. We actually have this year, we started it last year, but we made it even more robust this year, what we call our independent study skills class. And it is now for 5 credits, and it will the student, any brand new student or any student that was in our multiple tiered system of support last year that meets a certain criteria are going to be required to take that class this first block. And then as also an ongoing support, that's kind of what our homeroom is all about, is to meet with the students and help them learn to be virtual kids, give them the skills, to be able to engage virtually, but not just virtually, but in independent study. So it's kind of a combination there.
Yeah.
But this new class was, as you may remember, every summer we have projects. They're usually, curricular projects that we pay a teacher their hourly rate to complete over the summer. And so we did a smaller version of this independent study skills class last year. And then Brenda Burke actually did a robust one this summer. So it's exciting. Thank you for asking about that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't put it on my program slide.
Well, the reason I asked that is because I'm involved in an executive credential class, and it was face to face, and has now gone totally virtual, and hearing comments from the instructors and the students about how do I get ready for the virtual class?
Yeah.
How do I put this together? In a face-to-face class, I get a reaction from my students, and that gives me a clue as to what my next subject might be or whatever. But in a virtual class, you don't always get that.
Yeah.
And so I was curious as whether there was, a train the trainer module in there.
Yeah, we actually, that's one of the things we did this week. Yesterday, that was on our schedule, our agenda, to work with the teachers on how do you work with these students virtually? What are your tips and tricks? And we have documents that, and a PowerPoint, and we talked about it yesterday with all 60 teachers and staff here yesterday about what does it really take to work with kids virtually, and what are the best practices. So,
great.
Yep.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Nice job. Way to go.
Thanks.
Dana, you do irritate me, though, because every time I ask you a question, you have the answer. Very irritating. I want to sit up at night. I'm going to find something you don't know. Find it.
And Jana, if I could comment, with all of with your loss, it's actually wonderful to see the vitality that comes to you when you're immersed in the work.
Thank you.
And so I just share from that experience. The work often can be a home for healing.
Yeah.
And so I just want to really acknowledge the excitement and vitality in your presentation. And I'm grateful to you for reaching to that tremendous place in your person and in your professionalism to bring that voice to us. And I hope that your work can be that home for healing.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, guys.
I think we all recognize that, and it's not easy.
Well said, Kevin. Way to go.
Thanks,
Well said.
guys.
All right. Well, Tom, I believe with that, you'll conclude our meeting. I'm sorry.
Do we have anything else?
Just
the notice of upcoming next meeting, and I said because closed session was deemed not necessary. I think that's the only thing that's left.
That's it. So November the 5th or something like that?
Saturday, November 6th at 8:30 a.m. Currently planned for teleconference.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Anything else for the good of the cause?
Good job, Tom and Kevin.